What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome. Oh, yeah, it's that time. Week 1 in the books. We can call it official. It stunk. Offense stunk. This is a historically bad week 1 for offense for everyone but Jacob in the player picks. Truly a tragic week for everyone else on Dynasty Points. It was so bad for the other two. Lucas Gilbert didn't make the show. So
he quit the show based on his poor performance.
yeah, he said no mass. He said no mass. I'm not doing the show. I'm out for this week. Ryan said nope. I have too much ass to research. I'm out for the show, but we're here for you guys. And really, at the end of the day, that's what matters. Of course, if you're watching this, you're going to want to be hitting like and subscribe and all of that other fun stuff that helps drive us all over the airways. And we love you guys for that. Obviously, this last couple of weeks has been absolutely massive for Dynasty Points. So much love to all of you guys for that. I, of course, am your host with the most time on his hands. I am Thomas Tipple. You can find me at El Nostra Thomas. Joining me tonight, as mentioned, the other guys are not here. So joining me tonight on his lonesome is Jacob Sanderson. We have a bunch of stuff to get to. We have Dynasty waiver wire ads because, man, this week we've already lost some absolute banger players. Second round startup picks just absolutely dropping. Truly tragic if you think about it. So we have some players in mind for you to go and pick up. And then, of course, we have quick reactions we're going to do right away on this show. And then we're going to get into it. There's backfields to talk about. There are wide receiver splits. Jacob and I disagree on the Chicago Bears wide receiver room. And I'm pretty excited to get rid of that. I think the one thing we can agree, there's a running back on that team that I think now we both agree is officially a Dynasty zero. So I'm excited to talk about. No, he's a zero. He's a zero confirmed. Absolutely dog water start. So with that, let's Jacob talk about instant reactions from week 1 as a whole. Obviously, every Dynasty YouTube channel is hammered Drake London home. I just had to keep up with the thumbnail because everyone else popped it up there. That's a big one. I'm not as surprised by week 1 Falcons as maybe some other people are, but let's get your general thoughts just as a collective whole on week 1.
The first thoughts is that tough week for offense and specifically a tough week for passing offense. Like, I mean, I felt like immune from it because I was pretty dialed in on the Texans Colts game during the early session, and that game was an absolute blast. And then I started looking around the rest of the league and I was like, oh, all these other games suck. Like there was basically like 3 or 4 fun games this weekend. The Sunday night game was good. The Eagles and Packers game was really fun. Obviously the season opening game, but a lot of the games had, either 2 offenses that couldn't do anything, where one offense was just kind of happy to sit on the ball and run out the clock, right? We saw that in the New England game. We saw it with Pittsburgh, where these were teams that were like, we're just going to sit on our 5-point lead all day. And I mean, then there was other games where even just one team got completely blown out of the barn. So I think it's going to take some adjustments. It seems to me like one thing that I think is just teams that have made it a point to rest all the preseason, right? There's this sort of rust versus rest debate. I think we're going to see more teams lean into the preseason because I thought the teams that looked sharpest out of the gate were some of the teams that played guys in the preseason, right? We saw the Chiefs play their guys in the preseason. We saw the Colts do it. We saw the Texans do it. A lot of the teams that actually came out looking good, and some of these other offenses, like, we hadn't seen anything on the Bengals. They look completely awful, right?
Yeah. I got some comments about that too, by the way.
Even some of these other teams. So that would be one takeaway. And the Falcons, another team where they didn't play any starters, right? And they come out, they look terrible. We'll see what's going on with Kirk Cousins. But that would be my first take. It's just rough week for offense. And I think we're going to have to try and figure out now how much which situations were week one weirdness, and which situations are going to be avoids all year long.
Yeah, and it's hard because it was, I think this was like the lowest touchdown total in week one in recent memory. So I think there was 34, and then the Monday night game came, and I think there was 2 in that game.
Was there like multiple teams that won games without scoring an offensive touchdown, right?
Yeah,
Like the
I mean the
Steelers won without scoring a touchdown. The Bears won without an offensive touchdown.
They won with their quarterback, their number one overall pick, throwing 93 yards against the Titans defense. That was surprisingly good, actually. The Patriots won, like Will Levis 120. Like it just the weeks were bad. Watson looks just. I think it's over. Like I want to get rid of Watson for any second that I can. Like I think it's officially over. Like Bryce Young level over, because that's also a whole other scenario. But Mike, if I were to have to pigeonhole like a quick thought in my head, it's week one quickly reminded us about everything that can happen throughout an entire season condensed into 1 week. Oh, what's that? The star player that absolutely swung more than 50% of matchups over the weekend just happened to be ruled out 5 minutes before the game went live. Great. That's dope. So
yeah, that was really annoying.
New auto feature. They did that on purpose. Sleeper bought
Sleeper paid off Adam Schefter not to tweet out.
They paid off Christian McCaffrey to not play. Like that's the only diabolical level that I can possibly think of. So you get that, right? You get the first one. And then you get every quarterback not named Baker Mayfield pretty much underperforming, because he's the only pylon quarterback that isn't at the top of the list. Everyone else, like Tua threw for 338 yards and was like meh. He was so meh. Like so we got that, and then we got to see the high upside, but like Daniels and Richardson they made so many more questions for themselves than answers, but they both got in from the 1 yard line multiple times. So it's like, okay, like we saw everything. Burrow's health, big deal. Are the 2 Bengals star wide receivers going to give a shit at all for the entirety of the year? I don't know. Backfields, but like even the players in the backfields that like secured the job, if you dive deeper into it, not really. So like it just encapsulated an entire season. Like I mentioned in the open, round 2 picks going down now for 6+ weeks. Like, sleeper back end tight, and Njoku's done. Like I'm not playing this dude off a high ankle sprain 6 weeks from now. Like it's over. So like players look dead, but we don't like it. Just encapsulated 16 weeks already in 1 week, and it's depressing. But we're here for you. The thing that I look forward to is knowing week 2 is on the way, and that gives me more hope. But week 1 was truly a bummer. But we do have some confirmed news that we can talk about here before we get to waivers. Like Justin Fields is rolling out against Denver. He looks like the guy, even though, God, he still looks so horrendously bad. And Arthur Smith is Arthur Smithing.
I mean, Arthur Smith got his dream, right? He got to play from ahead the whole game because the opposing quarterback couldn't do anything. And so he just got to run his offense at a completely sloth pace. They ran like 30% of plays in 13 personnel because he's Arthur Smith. I mean, he got to do his thing, man. They got to run it with Fields a gajillion times. They ran it with Najee a gajillion times.
But that's what I'm saying.
What they're going to do.
It was just so Arthur Smith. And like, I'm sorry, but Justin Fields, I've never seen a guy that just wants to take a sack on 3rd down more than Justin. That dude, for a mobile quarterback, lives for holding onto the ball and taking a sack. Like that is his favorite thing to do. They only kicked field goals. Like it was just, he hit George Pickens on like some big plays that actually looked like kind of nice. 66% of the snaps because Arthur Smith. Like we're just going right back. Like he's just Desmond Ridder now. Like he ran for 80? I think he ran for 88 yards, and he was
he ran for a lot less. He was 14, I think, for 57.
He's a fantasy dud, and like he's a mobile. Like it just this team, and yeah, he ran it with Najee Harris, was a dud. Warren got 4 touches, dud. He made sure to get Cordero Patterson in the game though. This team is trash. trash, absolute garbage. So yeah, we have some news with that. He is starting for sure. Let's talk about some waivers because Andrew Seibert on Twitter, and if you haven't already, head to the Fantasy Points YouTube channel. There's a code there pinned in the comment section. If you're not subscribed for some reason, with the bomb ass content that goes out, it gets you 25% off. So you're gonna want to do that. Is Jalen Wright worth waivers? Yes, absolutely. He shouldn't be on the waivers.
This can't be a dynasty question. I'm assuming this is a redraft question. Either way,
but he shouldn't even be on waivers.
Either way, definitely going to be a guy you want to pick up here. Yeah.
There's some guy in your team that has Darnell Mooney on their bench instead of Jalen Wright, and if that's you, drop Mooney and just go get Jalen Wright. Two guys banged up. Obviously, Mostert and HN, they're fearing high ankle sprain from what I heard from HN, which would be nightmare fuel. So go and get Wright for sure. There's some other guys. Let's talk about Tyler Johnson. I think Tyler Johnson played really well when he came in. Although I do think it'll be Parkinson that kind of benefits the most because we know that Stafford loves his Caucasian tight ends. He only got five targets, but I think he'll benefit the most from that. I don't think
the
this
slight bummer there is we thought, from the preseason, all the hype was around Jordan Whittington, and then he gets the dream injury there with Puka Nacua going out, and it's all Tyler Johnson. So we'll see. It seems as though they have roles. Now that doesn't mean obviously that when Tyler Johnson comes in and plays the Puka Nacua role that he's going to have the Puka Nacua production, but just in terms of the route tree that they run, that sounds like it's the idea is that DeMarcus and Kupp are going to stay in their route trees. Johnson's going to come in and play the Puka quote unquote role. And with how the Rams run things, it just tends to be very consolidated on their wide receivers. So it sort of is the deal where you're probably getting 0% of the routes or 90% of the routes. It's pretty unlikely they're just going to rotate Johnson and Whittington around. So you'd have to have a pretty deep dynasty league to be starting Tyler Johnson, I think. But I mean, there's a lot of room for a second receiving weapon. Alongside obviously Cooper Kupp is going to have a gajillion targets. But if he ever gets hurt, or if some defense decides they don't want to let him have 21 targets, then maybe someone else gets it.
Right. And DeMarcus Robinson has McVay's trust too. Let's not forget that. It just wasn't a dream spot. I said Whittington could just be Skoranek, but I don't know, fancier because he's newer. I don't know, but he just kind of feels like that vibe right now with his role. Maybe he gets schemed in a bit more. I don't know what's going to happen. McVay's good. Joe Schmo says I'm picking up Whittington this week because he's cheaper. I mean, again, that's probably a redraft thing. I would imagine because Whittington shouldn't be on your dynasty waivers unless you got short benches, but he's worth picking up. We got Alan Lazard that we actually have to talk about in the year of our Lord 2024.
Yeah.
I think we do. I think we actually might have to talk about it. He produced way more than he rightfully deserved to, even after he consistently screwed up. Rodgers I'm still going to him because Mike Williams is dust. And
I think Mike's gonna be that guy there in that role over time. They paid him. He's been a much better player over Alan Lazard over the course of his career.
If I need to play next week,
first game back, sure. If you're gonna play next week, but I think this is one of those ones where I wrote this big long intro in the column today where it's the Schrodinger's cat effect.
That's thinking about thinking, by the way,
where we get all this new information, right? And it's there's some things that are very clearly this is real and we got to act on this, right? You think about, we can debate how real or whatever, but Isaiah Likely's emergence is very obviously a thing. We got a young player in a brand new role, really productive, and the only debate is how much is this going to stick around? And then to me, on the other hand, it's we look at things like Alan Lazard, and this is a spot where if you look over the course of the full season, we always see weird random weeks from random guys. And when they happen in week 12, nobody really imbues much value upon them, right? We're just it's week 12 and Joe Schmo had 25 points today. That's kind of random. It's not going to happen next week. But then every time something happens in week 1, it's we know just the way these things are distributed, there's got to be some stuff that happens in week 1 that is totally random and not predictive of anything. But we put a lot of value on it because it's more likely to be predictive because we just don't have any other sample this season. I think the Lazard thing is an example of one of those where that's just the random shit that happens over the course of the season is you get like an Alan Lazard 2-touchdown game. Probably still going to run a lot of routes next week because I think Mike Williams will take a while to ramp up and like Lazard produced. But like, I don't know. I think if you're putting Lazard in your lineup next week, you're asking for 2 catches for 22 yards.
Yeah, that's just a problem with Dynasty waivers, though. Tyler Johnson could be a 0, right? All these guys could realistically be a 0.
Well, the Dynasty waiver guy I'd want to add, if I had to pick one guy that I would actually, he might not be on every waiver, but would be Devon Vele. That'd be the actual priority.
Yeah, that was one I was going to ask you about. The 6'5" scat back in Denver. 6'5" Zay Flowers out there. That nullifies Marvin Mims, like 16% of snaps. It's over. It's over, guys. Like it's over. I know. Look, we had a long conversation, and respect to the individual that was in the Discord, really harping that we're giving up to her. 16% of snaps, outdone by like a guy barely younger than Jacob as a rookie. That got what, 8 catches, 8 targets, or 6. This is the guy keeping him off the field. Troy Franklin's not far behind. I truly believe he's going to get on this field. It's Sutton had 12 targets. Like, it's just, I don't know if it's happening because Sean Payton's not leaving. And Sean Payton might actually hate Marvin Mims more than Dennis Allen hates A.T. Perry. He just doesn't do it publicly.
No, he does nothing but, like, Sean Payton, every time he's asked about Marvin Mims, he's like, man, like, someone's got to get a better job of getting him on the field. Like, I don't know who's coaching this team that's not letting Marvin Mims get on the field. Like, he's just dying to break out. It's like, you're in charge.
It's you, dog.
You're in charge.
Yeah.
So it would be so much more honest if he would just say the truth, which we all know is that he just doesn't think he can play. And he's probably right. But it's very funny, the Marvin Mims stuff. I don't know what's up with Vele. Like, he could be nothing. It's just like any rookie. And I understand that he is a little different of a rookie because he's kind of on the Hideki Matsui age timeline.
The Josh Whedon of wide receivers.
Brandon Whedon. Yeah. The
or Brandon
Matsui,
Whedon. Josh Whedon.
Miguel Tejada.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a little different, but I would just say, like, if we're just talking like heuristics of Dynasty, rookie gets 8 catches in his first ever start. That's enough for a little fab bid, I think. So that'd be the guy that I'd want to add. You never know. That's
the thing with these waivers, right? It's always hard in Dynasty. A lot of these guys end up being 0s. Like I used to talk a lot about, I used to make so much money off of just flipping these waiver guys, but I mean, the community has just gotten sharper in terms of like flipping waiver guys that end up being 0s for, a 1-week win or something like that. So I definitely think those 4 guys are kind of priority. I think I want to talk about Jeff Wilson because, again, towards the end of the game, they use him to run the time down. That's just his role. But if those 2 guys are gone,
healthy guy left.
I was going to say, they're not giving Jalen Wright 95% of the snaps, and you're going to talk about goal line. That's going to be Jeff Wilson. I think Jeff Wilson is actually worthy of an ad, especially if you are a down bad 0 RB team. He should probably already be on your bench if you're one of those sickos like us. But if he's out there, he's worth getting. He's getting picked up. Peyton will construct evidence of a losing offense dedicated to him to stick it to the nerds. That's so funny. So I think Jeff Wilson's probably my priority pickup, and then it's like Ty Johnson, and then Falefa.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to screw his name up all year.
Jeff Wilson would be the only guy who's on Dynasty waivers that is like a plausible starter this week. I think you probably only want to start him if both Achane and Mostert are out, and I don't know if that's going to be the case, but certainly if you are struggling at running back, and certainly if you're an Achane or Mostert manager, then you definitely want to have Jeff on speed dial.
Yeah. Agreed. All right, we got through our first initial reactions. We got through our waivers. Quick break here, and on the other side, we're going to actually dive into some player rates and some stuff that really matters. Dynasty value shifting. I don't know how long this one's going to be, but there's a lot to talk about here, so buckle up, everybody. Okay, I think we should start. I think this is the position that's going to take the least amount of time. Let's talk about tight ends, because every tight end was awful. This is like except for Isaiah Likely and Foster Moreau. Really, every tight end was terrible. There's one tight end that stands out, and that's obviously Brock Bowers, who alphaed in that offense. He's like the first tight end,
best football player of all time.
First tight end to hit 25% target share in his first game, I think. I think Ryan Heath gave me the scoop on that. It was good. Like, his production still wasn't special, but it's a good signal for sure. Like, it didn't like wow me, but 3.6% from the backfield he lined up on. He lined up in the slot quite a bit. I think it was over 50%. It was 52.5%, if I'm not mistaken. The only 30% inline, so that's clearly Mayer's job. So that's good. Bindles wants to know if Bowers can afford a hair transplant.
76% route participation, which was the big one for me. Like, he comes out, 76% route participation and 26% targets per route run. That's big. Earning targets when he's on the field. And, I think we were very worried about what the routes would be. That's not like ideal route participation long-term. But like, I think when we were talking about our fears in the offseason, the fears was like, he might start week 1 at like 50% route participation, right? I mean, Mark Andrews just had 75% this week. Travis Kelce, most of last year, was in the high 70s. If this is his baseline of being at 76, and there's even a chance to grow that up into the lower mid 80s over the course of the year, he's going to be a top 10 tight end this year. It's just going to be a matter of this offense, right? I mean, the Raiders are going to be a rudderless ship this year because they punt on 4th and 1 from the opponent's side of the field in the fourth quarter when they're down by a touchdown. So there's just like not much you can expect out of the Raiders in terms of trying to win games. But I was impressed by Bowers. I wrote a lot about the tight end position at the top, even in the running back column today, just because I thought it was kind of a useful analog of how I think we can react differently to, somewhat similar stat lines based on the context. And I wanted to dive into that. And yeah, I think there's, depending on the guy here, slightly different takes. Turn the light on there for the video listeners. Like, we can talk about the Andrews Likely situation. I think I'll save that for last. I think that's probably the most interesting one to break down. But like, you look at like a Trey McBride, that's like the classic scenario to me of everything's fine, right? It's like 26% targets per route run, ran 1 million routes, got 9 targets, just didn't have the production. It's like that I look at that, I'm like, it'll bounce back next week. No issues here. You look at like a Dalton Kincaid, right?
That's what I want to bring up.
Yeah, like that's one we got to talk about.
I was saying like Bowers above expectation. Everyone else but Andrews is like, okay, I'm chill. Except Ingram as well. Ingram might be dead if Trevor Lawrence is throwing it downfield. Like, even if again that offense looked like shit, I don't see 110 targets coming for Ingram again this year. Like, I'm even concerned about Kirk because Gabe Davis was the one on that team this weekend, which was weird, but maybe it was game plan. I don't know.
They also ran the ball like
I know
outlier amount.
I know the offense,
some weird stuff.
Again, it was just weird. But I am concerned for like peak upside Evan Ingram right now. But I'm concerned about him. I'll say that, but I'm going to chill on that because we've seen production. We're talking about a guy who
I'm
had
most worried about are Kincaid and Kelce.
Oh, it has to be Kincaid. 1 target, 1 reception. He was out there so much. He was in the slot, and everyone assumed he was just going to get peppered. Guess what? Knox played. Knox outproduced. This was the story with him last year. I know Ryan Heath explained the splits with him and Knox very much like producing like Kraft and Musgrave. Like, it was not a pretty scenario for Kincaid. Now, maybe this is just, again, game 1, but Josh Allen was out there going nuclear, and he was an afterthought. Like, I was surprised by the Keon Coleman usage for sure, and they ran the ball 17 times with Cook, and they even got Ray Davis in there. So running the ball with Joe Brady, guess what? Still a factor. Granted, it was Arizona, but this is a signal for me. Now, it's not going to stay this way. So in next week, when he has like 5 catches for 60 and 1, someone's going to pop in the thing and be like, oh, that was a pen. This is still concerning. Like, this is not just a floor. This is a 0. This is week losing 0 potential.
So I want to talk a little bit about the Knox stuff because I wrote that up. I think that some of the reaction to some of the knock stuff is a little bit off personally. And I'm not like a big Kincaid bull, but we can compare and contrast this with the Andrews likely stuff too, where Kincaid ran 83% of routes this week, 25 on 30 dropbacks. That's good. He didn't have route participation concerns. So Knox playing as much as he did was really at the expense of, while they were rotating their third receivers, but basically it was at the expense of some combination of Shakir and Samuel snaps. Most of the time that Knox was running a route, it was 12 personnel snap with Kincaid on the field. He wasn't really subbing one of 11. So I'm fine with the Kincaid usage as it pertains to Knox. I think the bigger concern is just he was supposed to be the number one target of this offense this year. He's supposed to be the priority guy in the offense, and he has one target on 30 dropbacks, which isn't obviously what you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I think too, like there was some weird shit in this Buffalo game where like Josh Allen had 2 pass attempts before the 2-minute warning of the first half because they came out really run heavy and Arizona was also really run heavy and they were controlling the ball. Buffalo wasn't possessing it at all.
Well, let's not forget that Josh Allen kept turning it. Like the turnovers were bad again.
So they get this. So they get in this spot where it's this weird script. But yeah, tough for Kincaid because I think with the difference with Kincaid too, it's like we don't really have that high of a talent baseline on him. You look at his target earning last year, his efficiency, and he's kind of right in the mix with like Jake Ferguson, Dalton Schultz, Cole Kmet, Dallas Goedert. Like that's kind of where he was profiling last year from a target earning perspective and from a post-target efficiency perspective. And the bet was a young player takes a step forward in year 2 from a talent perspective, which is still on the table, but like that takes a hit when, we're not seeing that coming out of the gate.
Yeah,
it's a little
100%.
different than like, you look at like a Sam Laporta and it's like, okay, he had a kind of a pedestrian game, but I think we should have, we have a lot more confidence of what type of talent Sam Laporta is. So that like when he has kind of a blah game, you're like, all right, that was just kind of a down week. He's going to be back next week. Whereas with Kincaid, you want to see that progression. So when someone's price depends on them taking a step forward as a talent and you don't see that, it's time to worry. The other guy that I'm worried about, and I would argue I'm even actually more worried about this guy than Andrews, is Travis Kelce. Because here's the thing about where I would compare and contrast Andrews versus Kelce. The Ravens didn't really run how they wanted to run their offense in that game.
No.
Their offensive line was not viable. I mean, you're the Ravens fan, so you would have the best perspective on.
I don't want to. We'll be here for an hour.
My read of it was like their offensive line was a disaster.
Yeah,
and that meant that they had to adjust their game plan proactively, which meant a lot of their passing was like designed low ADOT gadgety shit to Zay Flowers and Justice Hill and whatever, and likely like they're yak players. And then even in the game, whenever they tried to dial up intermediate or deeper stuff, they usually weren't able to get there. And it was Lamar scrambling or he's checking down. And so then you combine that with what the Chiefs were doing, which was, Andrews had the highest double team rate that he's had in a game in 4 years. They were really trying to take him away and they couldn't block to open up those kind of intermediate routes that he lives on. It felt a little bit more circumstantial to me. Whereas with the Chiefs, like I thought they ran their offense pretty much exactly how they wanted to. Like, Mahomes was great the whole night. They were very much in rhythm, and they were dialing up a bunch of first read targets into the short, intermediate, and middle of the field, which is where Kelce lives. They were just all going to Rashee Rice. So like to me, that felt more like Rice just eating Kelce's lunch in a game that was going according to the plan, versus Baltimore felt a little bit more like we have problems and we're trying to solve them. And Mark Andrews isn't part of the solution today, but I don't know that I got the vibe of like he's not part of their offense. I thought it was a little bit more like Baltimore was in disarray and Lamar Jackson was freewheeling his way out of it.
I think some of it is they kept putting Roquan Smith on Rashee Rice on those routes, which they didn't change it up fast enough, which is kind of where he started to eat the lunch. I'm not as concerned with Kelce in terms like. They inked Noah Gray and they used Noah Gray, but I said this last year, like they're probably going to take it easy on him out of the gate, and they'll probably take it easy on him again towards the end of the season to the playoffs, and then he'll just go out and do what he did again in the playoffs. Like this was a legitimate concern to begin with. Ceiling Kelce is probably still there, but the consistent ceiling, Kelsey, is probably gone. I mean, we're still talking about what, a 34-year-old tight end on a team that's trying to win 3 in a row. Like, if you held him on your roster, you have to be ready for this low end game. It just used to be that Travis Kelce didn't have the low end game in his bag. Travis Kelce now has the low end game in his bag. Like, I think he'll eat still multiple times. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if he goes over 15 points 10 times this year again. He's going to find touchdowns and you know, and all that. And the big plays from Worthy took them off the field when Humphrey just forgets what his coverage is and lets him just walk in for 30 free yards that Jacob could have walked in for. Like, it just truly bad play. So that definitely helped as well. And Baltimore didn't really turn the ball over except for the one. So, I mean, and Baltimore just ran the ball. So I guess that felt limited as well. If I were to sum it up, I just think it just means the floor now exists for Kelce where it never did. So I think that now all the tight ends are the same. Like, there is not one apex. I think they're just 8 guys that are the same right now until we see otherwise.
I mean, the pushback I'd have on that a little bit is, like, I mean, first of all, it's 1 week. I do think there was some encouraging usage for some guys, like Bowers, McBride. But also, that's a little bit the point, is, like, you know, part of why I was kind of lowering some of the tight ends in my ranks this offseason was that there was a lot of really interesting profiles and the scarcity effect of it was kind of gone.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, if Kelce is in decline, if Andrews is in decline, if Kincaid's not going to break out, if the Falcons are still a disaster, although I'll quickly celebrate, we got 100% snaps from Kyle Pitts. So one of the many issues in his life is no longer an issue. So shout out to that. But you know, if some of these other bets, like if some of these older guys are falling off, or some of these younger guys we thought were going to break out aren't, and then, like, if whether it be McBride, whether it be Laporta, whether it be Bowers, if like 1 or 2 of these guys can really step up, that scarcity is going to come back. Where if it's 1 or 2 of these guys gets 16 points per game this year, 15 points per game this year, and Kelsey's down at 11 and Andrews is down at 11 and Kincaid stuck on 12, like, all of a sudden now the value of a replacement effect is going to be back in a way that I was kind of worried it was leaving. You know, you add in also Njoku, serious injury, Ferguson, serious injury. Like, there's a chance for, if one of these tight ends can meet the moment, to really, really separate. We'll see, obviously, if that happens. But
right. Yeah. I think you're right to be a little concerned on Kelce. I just think it's just an awakening for the people that have had an invincibility code on Kelce, a little bit of denial last year. And then now we're seeing the floors. It actually exists. It's not impossible. So that's the tight ends. And that was I said going to be the fastest. We still did a little more time than I thought. This could be 2 hours. I don't think anyone would be surprised, but let's get into, I think we should move into the backfields. I think, to me, there are specific backfields.
13,000 words on it today. So
I know you did. I know you did. Let's rock through it, because there's some stuff that I think really matters, and I'll let you elaborate on some of this. But let's talk the Giants. They're trash.
Yeah, they're not good. One of many non-viable
The Catalyst
offenses.
says it's Penix time. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So Singletary, 70% of the snaps, not surprising. 53% route participation. 10 carries, 5 targets. He had an 11% target share. That's pretty good. Tyrone Tracy actually played a little bit more than I thought he would, with 21% of the snaps. He had a 9.5% RB share. And a 7.1 target share, which I thought was actually a lot better. The drop, not good for him, but I think they do like him, and I think they will continue to use him. I think that's better usage than I expected, honestly, considering where the game was too. So I think this is important to note that Singletary is still going to be the guy, like, especially this week. They get Washington, and like Washington just got their lunch money stolen, like, in the worst way. They might be
the Giants.
They might be the worst defense in the league.
They
so
suck.
Like,
they're terrible.
Yeah, there could be some, like, also Daniel Jones's best games in his career. Like, the only team he's good against is Washington. So there could be something here this week, but I think the Devin Singletary volume play we're heading down Mike Davis.
I got him. I
picked
him in my player picks.
Oh yeah, did you? I didn't even look at yours. You got them in already. I'm impressed.
I got him in.
Not doing them during the show. That might be a Dynasty Points first.
Hey, I didn't do them during the show. I didn't do them during the show last week, and paid off pretty big time.
It did.
New
I'm
year,
proud
new
of you.
me.
Can't believe you wiped the floor with us. But really, this just signals, like I said, I just think Devin Singletary's heading down Mike Davis.
Singletary would have a high-end RB2 role if he played on a real offense. He's just going to be limited by they're going to score like one touchdown every week. So there's only so much upside you can get if you have like a 30% chance of getting one touchdown.
He's stuck on the bench now.
Yeah, so he's an okay like flex play. He's a good play this week because of the matchup. Tracy though, if we're looking dynasty wise, like I wrote him up in Hitchhiker's Guide, and I was like, encouraging usage, but I don't know how useful he is in seasonal because like, what do you win when you win with Tyrone Tracy? Well, this year you win the starting running back of the Giants, which is winning nothing. But for dynasty, I think really encouraging that in a week that a lot of rookies played very little, he actually outsnaps Eric Gray, gets some reasonable usage, even got in on a goal line series. So that's fun start for him.
Yeah, and he's obviously more explosive, so he might need less to be relevant. So I think that's important to note as well. But again, it's the Giants. We probably spent a little bit longer than we should have. It's disappointing for a guy that if you drafted him, you're hoping to get some RB2 production, but I just don't think it is ever going to happen. Let's talk about probably the one that's going to trigger you the most that I have written on here, because I think it is absolutely hilarious what happened. Let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars, Jacob, because oh my God, like the worst thing possible could have happened. Etienne played 66% of the snaps. He had a 46.2% of the running back rushes. He did have a 14% target share. This game was weird. 12 carries for 44 and 1. Horrendous fumble down at the 5. Horrendous. It was just it was a great play by the defender, but we got to two-hand that into the end zone. 3 targets, 2 catches for 15. Let's talk about the worst player in the NFL last year. Because all preseason we heard, we want to get him the ball. He's really worked hard. He's going to have a role. It's week 1. So obviously we're not freaking out, but he had a day. And when they needed him, like this is very much neutral game script for a lot of the game, pretty much. Not down, not up, not at, not down, but not out of it. They're still running the ball. 36% of the snaps. He had 46.2% of the RB rushes. No target share. He's not going to catch the ball. So it's all carries. But this matters in terms of taking the ball out of Etienne's hands, which is, again, what we heard. Like, we heard that all offseason, and people were still drafting this dude in the 3rd round of startups, and I think I tilted over it more times than I can count. So 12 carries, he had 73 yards. He actually did look pretty explosive. I don't know what his missed tackles force rate was. I actually didn't look that up, and I should have because it was higher than Etienne's last year. But I'm pretty sure he didn't make anyone miss as far as I can remember. But 12 carries, again, no targets. He did run just 4 routes. But let's talk about this, because if he's legitimately going to get 45% of the rush share through the year, if he continues this, and if he even remotely eats at some end zone touches, I mean, Etienne, again, we should be fearing Etienne's ultimate upside, I think.
Yeah, it's a legit downgrade for sure. I think that the role, like you mentioned all the snap shares and stuff already, so I think that the role looks a little better than the 12-12 in that Etienne is still the one running all the routes here. He's the only one that gets targeted in this game. But yeah, it's very much like you look at the nature of the split, they're pretty much trading off dead even on early down carries, and all of the additional snaps that Etienne's getting is all LDD work. It's 2-minute drill work. Etienne gets the only goal line carry here, but they each got short yardage carries throughout the game. So to me, I would look at that as like they probably don't have a goal line back, so to speak. I think if Tank Bigsby's in the game and they get inside the 5 on his drive, I'm guessing that he probably stays in on that drive. So we're going to get some vultures at some point here. There's a lot of running backs out there in the world that play roughly 65 to 70% of the snaps. So like, I think Etienne is going to be plenty startable, but it's not going to be like a top 5 running back role if this is going to continue. And Tank looked great. Like
He did. He authentically.
It's been a
looked
roller
good.
coaster. Like I loved Tank as a prospect. I obviously hated everything he did last year. I mean, how could you not? He was like looked like he was shaving points for most of the season. So like it was a little hard to believe, even as a guy that liked him as a prospect, that he was just going to come in this year and look good. But now that I've seen it, like that he had those 2 big runs out to the right side where there was penetration on both of those. He makes a really decisive move, looks confident, looks good, and has some actual juice. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like last year, he's not a slow man physically, but I think last year his processing was so slow that he wasn't translating what he was seeing to his feet, and he looked really sluggish. He looks like he's a more confident back this year, moving a lot better. Really, good stuff for Bigsby. I mean, the bummer is like he has this big game, and you're like, look down, you're like, oh man, what did I get? I got 7.3 PPR points. So it's like I don't think Bigsby is a startable asset because he ran 4 routes, right? So all of the passing game stuff is ETN. So like you still can't really start Bigsby. But the one thing if you have him is number one, if ETN gets hurt, I think you start feeling way better about what you have now as a handcuff in Bigsby, and he's definitely gonna be an annoyance for ETN.
Yeah, I think that's the big takeaway for me is the ultimate upside of ETN was just volume, like we mentioned, when he really went on his RB1 run to start the year last year and then against Carolina again. This was a signal that I was worried about all offseason. And if this contends, I'm going to be glad that I put the fade on all year. Because again, I mean, Coach Speak Index strikes again with the accuracy from Doug Peterson. He wanted to get Bigsby in. They got Bigsby in. It looked good. So shout out to what would be. I know Bindle said Traylon Burks was the worst player in the league. You can't win that award like 3 years in a row. So we're going to give it to Bigsby last year. But damn, it looked bad. But good for him. We'll see what happens. Before we get to the next one, I want to take the next break real quick. We're 42 minutes in. I think we took the first break at around 20. Don't hold me to that. We're going to go in at 40, take a quick break, come back, and we're going to hammer out more running back rooms and then some wide receivers. I want to talk about a couple quarterbacks, of course. So sit tight for this 2-hour-long marathon between Jacob and I. Sit tight. TD, I saw your trade. I don't know if you want to talk. Let's talk about Toronto Dave's trade. Right here.
Which trade?
It's a big one with our own Discord demon Dynasty Buck, who's been putting threads out in the Fantasy Points Discord. We have got Lamar Jackson and a 26 second going to Dynasty Buck. We've got Joe Burrow and a 26 first going to Toronto Dave. That's a
big deal.
This is a big boy deal. I like both sides. This is split down the middle for me.
Yeah,
I want the Lamar side.
I have some legitimate. Yeah, that's a toss-up deal for me. I mean, first of all, it's hard because I don't have either of the teams in front of me. So if I'm evaluating a 26-1, it's hard for me to do that without knowing more about the team that's trading away a 26-1. But yeah, I have legit concerns about Joe Burrow after what we saw in week 1. I mean, let's just be honest. Joe Burrow has played about a half a good season in the last 3 now, counting this one as 1. Like he got off to a very poor start 2 years ago, was stronger down the stretch that year for sure. Then was quite bad last year. Has the injury in the preseason. I think it was a hamstring issue, and then is quite poor to start. Has a couple of better games there in the middle of the season, and then gets hurt again, and then comes back this year and looks hurt / not very good. So I think it's reasonable to start having questions about Joe Burrow. I moved him down a tier in my dynasty rankings after this week, which is like I don't usually move the top quarterbacks very much at all off of like one-off performances, but I thought this was an issue. So I'm very concerned about Joe Burrow's long-term health and ability. That's why I'm taking the Lamar side of this deal. But I also like hate trading my own 1-2 years away. Like, it's really something I try to avoid doing, just based on.
Well, the NFL is weird, man.
Yeah, the NFL's weird, man. Like, there's a lot of dynasty teams that I thought were going to be set for life, and then you get 2 years in the future, and it's not, and you really wish you had that first. So, I'll take the Lamar side, but probably not how I'd want to execute the deal. Scary.
Correct. I agree. We are going to talk about those Bengals in the quarterback section because, yeah. All right, let's move to the next one. I think it's the Titans. And to me, this is the biggest. How do I put this? This is like the biggest misrepresentation of usage, in my opinion, than any other of these teams. Tony Pollard had a really good first quarter, right? 7 carries, I believe it was 52 yards. He had a 26 or 27-yard touchdown. That looked really great. And then the rest of his day was just average. Like, he had the big first quarter, but then he still got most of the touches. So everyone's assumed that he's run away with this backfield. 62.3% of the snaps, 61.5% of the running back rushes. He had 12.5% target share. That was really nice. 16 carries, 4 targets. Spears, 44% of the snaps, only a 15.4% of the running back rushes, a 12.5% target share. Definitely the third down back. And I believe they each got a goal line touch. I can't quite recall that off the top of my head. Pollard looked pretty good early, but again, he just looked kind of sluggish. And then if you listen to the head coach, he's like, yeah, we definitely want this to be more of a split. Tony Pollard got off to a hot start, so we kind of rode it out with him, et cetera, et cetera. This performance doesn't scream to me like there's no way that Tajay Spears just can't earn more work. And this is just like Pollard completely ran away with it. I don't think Pollard's first quarter with the long run really puts him like at a 70 to 30% or 64 to 35%, because we heard all year it's 1A and 1B, 1A and 1B. So if Tajay Spears breaks a big run next week and he gets the bulk of the carries for the rest of the game, now we're right back at square zero. It just wasn't a performance that solidifies like Pollard is the guy, Spears is below a flex now. I just think it's still up in the air. I don't feel it's as definitive as maybe instant reactions might be.
I want to see next week, because my fear on this was everything that the Titans coaching staff said has been a lie. They've been lying to us now for 6 months, which is what concerns me. All year, right? I mean, they've said one thing repeatedly, which was that they're going to be used interchangeably. We're going to each use them all in all situations. And then the other thing that they said less frequently was it's going to be roughly 50-50. They said at one point, they were like, we're not even going to name a starter. We're not even going to say it's 1A, 1B. They're just both starters. So part of that was speaking to, the rate of the touches, and part of it was speaking to how they were going to be used. I wasn't that surprised to see Pollard have more snaps than Spears in week 1. I was really surprised at how they were used. I totally thought, because frankly, I think it's the most intelligent way to use them, that what they had been saying all year was going to come true, which is we're going to use them both in any situation. It's going to be, they all could get goal line work. They all could get third down work. They all could get rushing work, passing work. That was not it. Like they basically, it was Pollard all day on early downs and Spears barely, and Spears on every third down in the 2-minute drill. Like, it was far more of a bifurcated committee than what they had been putting out into the world. And so now that they're saying like, oh, we're going to get Spears more involved, it's like, well, you've just lied to me repeatedly for 6 months. So if I'm doing the coach speak index on you, I'm putting you at a 0% reliability rate on this backfield, Brian Callahan. So I don't give a shit what you say. My attitude on this is they lied so blatantly about their plan that I kind of just believe their actions more than their words for the time being. So I agree with you that I don't view this as locked in, as in this is what's going to happen for the whole 17 weeks. But in terms of when I'm setting my lineups this coming week, I'm gonna take I'm gonna build assuming that they're gonna do what they did with their actions rather than their words until I see new actions. So I hope Spears gets more opportunity. I think he's a really good player. Was obviously excited to see Pollard come back. Yeah, I'm a bit worried about the Spears bags and optimistic about the Pollard bags for sure after seeing that.
Yeah, definitely a wait and see for me. Not totally buying, not totally selling. Not yet. Not yet. But next week, if it's the same story of the same, I'd be genuinely concerned. Let's talk about. I'm going to save the Chargers for the end because I want to kind of turn that into receivers. But let's talk about the Bucs backfield because Bucky Irving legitimately impressed me. 9 carries for 62 yards. Rashad White had the Rashad White experience, 6-7 catches for 65, and he ran like shit at like a 2.8% like yards per carry. He looked very Rashad Whitey, still caught the ball. But Bucky comes in, and people I've seen on the internet are saying like, oh, he got so much room to run. Well, that's because I actually think that Rashad White wouldn't have either found those rushing lanes or he would have been tackled 2 yards before those rushing lanes were possible for him to get to. So Bucky to me clearly looks more explosive. Rashad White very much looks the same as he always has. And
-2 record over expectation per attempt against the Washington Commanders is a feat.
Yeah, it's egregious.
Rashad White is just like he's literally just like the old cooked version of Alvin Kamara, but like in a young man's body. Like he's still a good receiver, and he's got the requisite size. He's just really bad at running. So I think he's a good enough receiver that he's not going to go away. But I mean, yeah, as part like if you're a Bucky fan, you have to be pumped, right? He looks fantastic.
Right. If this guy ends up slowly eating away Rashad White's just carries, and that slowly works its way to the goal line, I mean, we're looking at a nightmare split for anyone that held Rashad White, myself included, hoping he retains this role. I think is genuinely concerning. I'm buying Bucky. This is a situation where I'm just buying. I'm believing now. There's some people that thought he would just be a 0, but it's clear to me he's going to have a role. And I think the week 6, week 7 prediction is legitimate, where he might even start eating into the receiving work. So I agree. This is a trust. This isn't in the terms of Ripley's Believe It or Not, we are believing it. This is a buy. I'm buying. I was going to talk about the Miami Dolphins, but I don't think we actually have to. I think it went exactly how he did, how I thought it was going to go anyway. Like we were predicting, Ryan was saying Achane wide receiver 3. Achane was wide receiver 3. We talked about the waiver wire. I think we can skip them. Falcons, Jets, elite RB1 usage. I think that's fine. I think we can pass that. The Browns did Browns things. I want to talk about the Chargers. Let's talk about the GOAT, J.K. Dobbins, who finally made it through a game. He looked healthy until the very end of his one long run to kind of put the game away, because a few years ago he houses that without question.
Oh,
and you could literally see him start slowing down after 20 yards, and it hurt my heart, but I'm happy for him. We are going to talk about Greg Roman, Sean Jeffers, because we're not getting through a week 1 where I don't talk about Greg Roman. It's just bound to happen. But 59.3% of the snaps, 37% rush share. The most impressive thing to me is the 11.5% target share. He was out there catching passes. That to me is huge. That's big for me. 10 on 135 and 1. So obviously the big run really helped his day, and so did the touchdown. But I want to talk about the reception. Right. And then the Gus Edwards is just Gus Edwards. He looks exactly the same as he always did. 4 yards in a cloud of dust on a good Gus Edwards run. He might bully some in, but I legitimately think JK is the one here. And I don't think I think they want him to be the one. I'm concerned that if Kimani Vidal does not get some run here over Gus Edwards by like week 7 in this offense, it's probably over. Because Gus Edwards looks bad. Like he looks slow.
Gus looks mega cooked.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. If by week 7 Vidal's not scratching at the surface to get some touches or even dress, this is a problem.
Yeah, this was the most fluid backfield in the NFL coming into the year. There's so many unknowns. I mean, Gus was like the guy that they got to be kind of the duct tape, more or less, where it's like
the grinder.
He knows the system. He knows what to do. He's not going to fuck it up. Like he's sort of the break glass in case of emergency guy that can come in and hold it down in case nothing else emerges. But I think we always kind of knew that the higher upside bets here were either Dobbins, who prior to his injuries was one of the most talented rushers in the league. I believe he is still the active leader in all-time yards per carry at the running back position in the NFL. 6.1 yards per carry for his career, which is nuts.
Shout out Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. And then, Vidal, who's a rookie and a lot unknown about him, but a lot of stuff to like. So seeing Gus come in, I think people really overestimate the year Gus Edwards had last year. You watched him on a week-to-week basis. So again, you know better than anybody, but like, this is a guy where they were really phasing him out mid-season, where Keaton Mitchell was starting to take a lot of his early down stuff. Justice Hill was obviously playing the passing down stuff, and Gus was being used like a short yardage specialist for a couple of weeks there.
Yeah.
And then Keaton Mitchell goes down. Dobbins had already gone down. And the Ravens were like, I guess we still have to use Gus Edwards. Like, we're not playing Justice Hill 100% of the snaps. And I mean, if you remember some of the most important games of their season, the 49ers game, the Dolphins game for the 1 seed, and then the AFC Championship, they were just like, we're going to just put the ball in Lamar's hands every play. Like, we're just going to run shotgun, and Lamar's going to be our running back. He's going to be our quarterback. Like, we're not going to deal with Gus Edwards. He's just not part of the plan. So I think the Ravens kind of knew he was cooked last year. And he looked, I thought, like awful in this game. He looked slow.
Right.
It didn't have much power left. Dobbins, man, I mean, people are focusing on the breakaway speed, and I get it. Like, he 100% a healthier version of Dobbins houses those. A lot of other running backs.
I agree with your tweet. I think healthy. I think he's like been the best runner in the league for a few years. Like, he's legitimately that good.
He's so good. And here's the thing, like, most running backs, if you give them 10 carries, don't turn 2 of them into what would be a house call. Most running backs don't have constant opportunities to turn pretty narrow runs into plays where we're scrutinizing their breakaway speed on yard 45 of the run, right?
Yeah.
Because
that's a good
Dobbins
point.
clearly still has, what he's always had is he's just I call him 100th percentile cerebral runner in my column today. Like, his ability to navigate small spaces between the tackles, see the hole, hit the hole, move through the hole. Like, he just does that. And he still has enough burst and agility to do the first part of it. Once he's navigated that and he's turned what would be a 3 or 5 yard or 8 yard run for a lot of other backs into what could be an 80-yard run, that's where you wish that these injuries had never happened, so that those could all be 80-yard runs. That's probably not what he's going to be, at least this season. But like, you'll take it, man. Like, if he can still do this for as long as he's able to, it's going to be great. I don't know. I can't promise. Like, I'm not a doctor. I can't promise anybody how long he's going to be able to do this. But I think the Chargers are going to let him do it until he like breaks down on the field. Like, I think they look at this and it's like found money. It's like, all right, JK, like, you're our lead running back until your body breaks again, basically, is kind of how I'm viewing this. And as far as how fantasy managers should view it, he's in your lineups until he's not. Like, basically, like, they want to run the ball. He's good at it. Play him. And if and when he breaks down, then you'll bench him. But like, I'm in.
So I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Let's talk about buying and then selling, because obviously a lot of people held him for like the opportunity to get rid of him. You're not selling him for less than a 2, I imagine.
No, I want an early 2.
Yeah, exactly. So what are you actually going to buy for then? Because we know what we would sell for. I've already seen him get traded for a second.
Value.
Interesting. Okay, I'm hesitant. I don't think I am. I think I'm still trying to get the person who's panicking and getting a 3. Or like, if I can go pop Douglas in a 3, or like work some bum ass receiver
3 at this point. Like, if you've held him till now and then he just goes and has like 20 fantasy points, it's like, you could have sold for 3 at any point. I could see people selling for 2s, and then ideally I would want to sell like some player that's worth a 2 that I care about less. I'm also probably only doing it on teams where I really need near-term running back production, because I don't know how long this is going to last.
Yeah, I did see him go for a 2 in the Fantasy Points Listener League. You're right.
Like, if I have Achan and he's declared out, I might,
toss him in. I think I would try to work some, like, again, like a Pop Douglas in a 3, or like Javon Baker in a 3, Mr. Inactive. Get to that fake overpay 2 price and maybe try to pull that off without letting that 2 leave your roster. I think there's some navigation room in there for picking him up without actually sending the 2 away. Because again, it is one game, and a lot of managers are going to be out there like, oh, next week it's over for him. Like he's not going to survive next week. So there is that fear, obviously, and some people might just want to get rid of him. I swear we only have 2 more backs that I really want to talk about. Only 2, I promise. Ramondre Stevenson's just going to eat. Antonio Gibson sucks.
Yeah, tremendous.
He sucks. A 3-year, $11.25 billion contract. He was given $5.3 million guaranteed, and this is the guy that's supposedly going to stop him from eating. He was ass. Stevenson. Oh my goodness, I can't read what I wrote because I'm just so fixated on how ass he is. Stevenson had 25 attempts. Like that is insane. Gibson had 7 attempts and 0 targets. That was supposed to be his thing, catching passes. Nope, they said no. And yeah, he was a little bit banged up, but it was all Ramondre all day. 100% of the carries inside the 5. He led the league with an insane 11 missed tackles forced. He's just going to continue to eat. He was an absolute buy. So if you've been listening all off season, you're going to be very happy because you have many shares of the man Mondre. So I love that. Absolutely love it. No fear. And even with May, when May comes in, I mean, this offense to me is just going to be better. So more end zone opportunities, even though May might run a few more in than Mondre fans want. I still think he'll check it down as well because he's just a good player. Let's talk about DeAndre Swift because I said he's a dynasty 0, and you kind of get. I think he's a dynasty 0. I think this was an opportunity to smash. They had what was it? Roshan Sat. He was terrible. Like he looked terrible. The receiving work wasn't there at all. He looked bad. Like he just looked slow. He looked uncomfortable. I don't know. I think he's a dynasty 0. I don't think you can trade DeAndre Swift right now. I think you'd get a 3rd offer, right? Like I think people would want like Dobbins right now over DeAndre Swift. Like I think he's approaching dynasty 0 level value.
I think that's a little harsh. I mean, the role was fine. Like he didn't play any 3rd downs. That was Travis Homer because I don't know, Shane Waldron's a total moron. And like wants to use his people from Seattle and Gerald Everett. Yeah, no, it definitely was. He plays 39 of 45 early down snaps. Khalil Herbert plays 6. Like that's basically what Joe Mixon's role was, which is like almost every single early down snap and none of the long down and distance. Like you just look in a vacuum at what the role was. It's good. Just the offense was totally non-viable. So I had him. I kind of talked a little bit of both sides of it through. I called him a fake regression candidate because the role is a lot better than, or I should say the role was a lot better than the output was. So if you buy that the role is going to stick, and especially if you buy that this offense, which I think compared to like some of the other disaster offenses in week 1, we would have a lot more faith in this offense turning things around than like when you compare it to like the Giants or the Panthers or some of those teams. Like if you sell yourself on Caleb getting better over the course of the season, this offense gelling, and Swift stays in that role, I think he's going to have really big weeks. But the reason I called him kind of a fake regression candidate is just like, I don't think he's all that good. And this offense was a disaster in week 1. They have more talent available to them if they want to use it. And I could see a scenario where like they look at this and go, okay, we're going to change what we were doing because it wasn't working. And if Swift doesn't start to get things going before this offense starts to get better, then potentially you get in a situation where, you know, the offense turns around, and part of the reason it turns around is they stop handing the ball to DeAndre Swift so much, right? Part of the reason is they stop targeting Keenan Allen 11 times for 29 yards. That's why I've been getting.
Well, would have been 29 yards if Caleb Williams could hit the broadside of a barn, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to talk about Keenan Allen later. I just think you can't trade him away. Like he was in a undeniably better offense last year and had the premier RB1 role on the Eagles, and he was barely usable for almost the entire season. And now we have a projectably worse offense, and now we're like hoping that he's going to be maybe half of what he was in Philly. And to me, he was already going in the 7th round of startups at RB 17.
His dynasty price was insane.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why I called him a dynasty 0, because now if he has 2-3 of these games, this guy, Tony Pollard was going after him because it was the hope of the Chicago Bears and people holding on to what they thought of DeAndre Swift and what really you've been telling people for years. And then he just goes out and the role was great, but it meant nothing. It meant jack squat. It meant 0. And these are just the type of players that end up becoming dynasty zeros, much like Javonte Williams is on his way to do in his current offense. Looked awful. That whole offense looked awful. The role didn't look good. He looked just okay. The upside for him it might be non-existent. I don't know. We'll see. Bo Nix needs to get his shit together.
I'm more optimistic on the rookie quarterback offenses than some of the other ones. Like I think if you're, I'm holding a candle out for Denver and for Chicago because it's rookies in their first start. I think it's a little different scenario than like Carolina, Tennessee.
No, I agree.
New York.
I'm just if we're drafting for pure upside on these late round backs, these two are going to be zeros, I think. Like if Javonte Williams sucks this year, he's another dynasty 0. Like it's just he's just going to be one of those backs.
It's a make or break year for him for sure.
Yeah, and Swift's make or break year was 2 years ago, and yet he still kept giving opportunity after opportunity, even after you kept telling people not to. I think it's just a bad situation. It's going to get worse. And I think guys like James Conner and Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard and all those guys that went after him, Kamara, Stevenson, I think everyone that drafted those guys instead are going to look really, 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 really smart because he's close to a 0. Wide receivers and quarterbacks will come back on the other side. I'm excited for this one. I don't know how long this section could go, but I think Jacob and I have a couple of disagreements here that could extend. Looking at you, my fat brother, Keenan Allen. Sit tight. Now we're talking about the Bears. Let's talk about the Bears. Caleb Williams was terrible. He was in all ways terrible. There's no redeeming qualities, in my opinion, from that game. Keenan Allen should have had 2 touchdowns in that game if Caleb Williams could dot him up. He couldn't. There's a little bit of an injury going into the game for someone like Keenan Allen. He came out of that game even more banged up. Like you said, his usage didn't come out looking superb, but he and DJ Moore barely.
Well, the usage was great. 11 targets, baby.
I know, but it's how they used him. To me, that wasn't very good. So for me, I say Keenan, in my notes here for the show, I say Keenan Allen may be fat, but I don't think he's dead. He had a higher target per route run. It was a 3 point. He had a higher target per route run. He had 3.5 at 3.5. He had a higher yards per route run at 1.26. That one actually surprised me genuinely. To only 1.2 with DJ Moore. He was the only Chicago Bear with the red zone target. That matters to me between the wide receivers and tight ends. And he led with 7 first read looks to Moore's 6. Now he is banged up. I don't think Keenan Allen's going to go away, especially with Rome gone. I think he's going to be a very valuable fantasy producer, but Caleb does have to get his shit together. It's still Waldron. Like at the end of the day, we're still fighting with Shane Waldron.
A disaster hire. I
agree.
I think this is going to go down as like. I think the Bears are really, really, really going to regret in the same year that they land Caleb Williams that they have this massive influx of assets. Sticking with Eberflus and then hiring Shane Waldron as opposed to just going and hiring a real head coach to come in to be the play caller. Like, just imagine if they just threw the bag at Ben Johnson this offseason instead, or Bobby Slowick or somebody else. Instead
anyone
of doing this. Just I think a really poor decision. But that being said, I think with Keenan, he's a hold more than a buy for me.
Oh, I agree.
Because it's the same thing that I fear with Swift, which is like you look at the usage and it's like if this role sticks and this offense gets better, he's going to be a smash. And he didn't score any points. People are going to be down on him. I just wonder, like, if you build the whole plane out of someone and the plane crashes, are they going to build the new plane differently next time? right? Like, is Keenan Allen Boeing in this scenario? Like, that's just what I wonder is like, who is at fault for why this offense looks so bad? I think Shane Waldron in part, but like specifically, what about what Shane Waldron did was bad? I think one of the things that was bad was like, you have Caleb Williams, who's this dynamic, free-flowing, scrambling quarterback. And you have these, now, unfortunately, they won't have a Dunze for a few weeks, but these two really athletic, deep threat, scramble drill type guys, DJ Moore and Roma Dunze, and they tried to build the whole plane out of Keenan Allen option routes at like 8 yards apiece. It's like, is that an intelligent decision? Like, I don't think that's a way that I would run my offense with Caleb Williams. And I worry that eventually they're going to come to the same conclusion. I don't know if Keenan, at this stage of his career, like, I wasn't really buying the fat and washed allegations coming in, but like 11-4, 29-0 is not helping him beat the washed allegations. So I'm going to give it a week. I'm holding. I want to see how things go the next couple of weeks. And if we get like, let's say we get like a 13-8, 61-1 game or something, and he doesn't pop for me on film, that might be the time I look to move on. But, we could also get a nice, efficient game down the road, and then maybe I'm happier with where he's at.
I wouldn't blame you if you sold on his usage now, right? Like, I'm not saying that he's like, a buy or anything like that. When we were texting and I said, I think he's not dead. I just mean, I think he's still going to be productive. And like MTM Revolt just said, limped off the field, trying to catch an end zone bomb. I agree. Like I mentioned, he's banged up now coming out of this game. This is just Keenan Allen. He's just plays through being banged up. He's banged up. This might have been one of the few games where he didn't finish as a wide receiver one. And it's what happens when you remove him from the Chargers. That was obviously a possibility if we use our brains here. But I think he's still going to be a productive player. But it comes down to Waldron. I think I'm getting out. I think I'm getting out for a 2 if I can. I think I want to get out early. I don't think he's cooked, right? I don't think he's dead, and he can go to a team next year on like a veteran 2-year contract that's like $30 million and be very productive wide receiver 2. But we should have been out when he left the Chargers. And I think we should get out now, personally. I don't want to wait a week because DJ Moore is still very much the better player. It's Waldron. It's the rookie. It's having 3 options for a rookie to support. We can pour one out for Cole Kmet though, because he is dead. He's super dead. He's put out to rest. Old Yeller, he's dead.
It is very funny. Like
dead.
I've been like never ever been a Cole Kmet guy.
Don't tell me
you've
converted.
I haven't converted. Like I don't think Cole Kmet is like special or anything. But I'm just gonna say like I don't think that it actually makes football sense to run like old wash Gerald Everett all the time ahead of him. Like I can't imagine that's like a good football choice. I don't care because I don't think Cole Kmet's that good, but like I just some of the personnel decisions, man. Like Travis Homer, RB2, Gerald Everett, tight end 1, seems to be things that he did only because they've played for him before in Seattle. And he's just like bringing his boys over to like run the plays that he thinks that they know when like there are clearly more talented, and then he's drawing shit up for Velus Jones, right? We have this, it's like this isn't an offense that lacks for talent. They have Keenan, they have Swift and Herbert, they have Roshan, they have a Dunze, they have Moore, they have Kmet. Like, there's just a lot of guys they could use. And like the fact that we're using like special teamers and Gerald Everett as like focal points, it's just like, okay, Shane, like, I don't know, man. This guy, I just really don't know what we're getting with this guy.
Yeah, I don't either. But again, Waldron, anytime, there used to be this funny joke. I guess not used to, but The Simpsons had like a great joke for nerds like me back in the day when people would ask, when they had the Xena episode with Lucy Lawless, and they would ask, well, what happens on the screen? And they go, anytime you see something happen that shouldn't, just know that a wizard did it. Every time we sit here and think about the Bears and why they're doing what they're doing, just know that Waldron did it. And it starts to make a lot more sense as to why it makes no fucking sense. Because it's Waldron.
It is
like everyone
very
remembers.
Funny that they went from Getsy to Waldron.
I know, but everyone remembers the Jacob Rants last year. It was a world famous clip here on Dynasty Points. It was one of my favorites, but it's back, unfortunately. So
Bears
Nick
get a
Pierce is
real
back, it
offensive
doesn't matter.
coordinator challenge. Impossible.
Right. Next year, they got to be looking over at Detroit and being like, all right, I'll give him 50% ownership of the team to bring him over here. Like, I think we're at that actual point. I would like to talk about Seattle because all I heard, I want to get this off my chest. This is week 1 to get the opportunity. All I heard was JSN is beating out Tyler Lockett. Wide receiver 1, Tyler Lockett for the Seattle Seahawks once again reigned supreme, and he was playing in 11. He wasn't even a full-time player, and he's still wide receiver 1 on this team. He's not going away. JSN still sucked. His usage sucked. His role sucked. Everything about what happened with JSN sucked. And DK Metcalf is just a jacked up wide receiver 2. I think we just have to accept that this is what the case is. Ken Walker looked phenomenal. He looked great. They're going to run the ball with him. They told us the whole time that they were going to run the ball with him. Charbonnet looked like ass running the ball. I think it was 8 for 12. He got lucky with the wheel route, broken play, touchdown. Great. Tyler Lockett's still the dude. He's still the guy. You buy Tyler Lockett because he's still valuable. He's not going anywhere. And until he's gone for sure, we don't know what JSN's going to be. But the full fade of JSN is on. It's on. It's been on. It's staying on until I have a reason not to. Get out. Get out. What were we doing with this? He had one of the worst rookie seasons I could possibly remember for usage and yard, and we blamed it on the OC. Now we get new up-tempo, good. Tyler Lockett still exists. Just phenomenal. Either it's a phenomenal all-time bag fumble by the Seahawks altogether, or he's just not the prince that was promised at wide receiver for them. I don't know which one it is, but I know that I don't have a lot of them, if any, on my dynasty teams, and I'm not running to go get more in the quote buy window or buy low. So I'm out.
Yeah, I'm willing to call it. It's Jover.
Yeah, it's pour one out.
Jover.
It's
Jover.
Let's pour one out. Bindles has asked twice.
If you can still get anywhere close to late 1 value, which you might, because there are a lot of JSN truthers in the world. It's time.
Yeah.
It's time to call it. I think I have them in the same tier.
I want Walker.
I might slightly lean Walker right now. He had a really good game.
I want Walker.
Although
we
have an injury worry with him. We're gonna have to see what the practice situation.
Yeah,
is.
I just think that's just kind of
core injury too. So we'll see what's up with that.
Yeah. But they said he's fine. I think they just said they pulled him out because they didn't need him. Bindles, I sold JSN for Trey McBride last December. That's criminal, and the other player shouldn't be allowed to play fantasy, I don't think. That is criminal.
Best trade of my whole year was this rookie draft. It was a pre-draft rookie draft. So I sold JSN for like the 2-3, the 2-9, and like the 3-6. And I ended up getting Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman, and Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, it's insane.
And it feels I'm never gonna have a better trade for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's already locked in as the best trade for you. Yeah, I just think it's over. I do want to talk about. I mean, you can talk about whatever. I'm just listing off what's on my list. I mean, if you got something you want to spout off, let's talk about it. But I don't want to talk about the Patriots. There's a full panic on Jalen Polk.
Why? It's his first game. Who cares?
Because I understand, but it was actually, and I'm going to try to pull it up real quick because I'm a super prepared analyst on fantasy football that has everything that I need pulled up on the spot. Because of course I would. Basically, every other rookie wide receiver was like upper tier in the route percentage, target share. Like it was a really good week for receivers, except for Polk. We had like a 4.6. It was really bad. But I want to remind people, I did put out a tweet about this at El Nostradamus when it comes to Jalen Polk. Jalen Polk had just a 4.3% target share. He played mainly with Drake May. He didn't play with Jacoby Brissett in the preseason. I think it's going to get significantly better for Jalen Polk when May comes in. We had Pop Douglas 3 targets, Mondre 3, Tyquan Thornton 3, KJ Osborne 6. Enough of that. And Javon Baker was a scratch. So if he can't crack this wide receiver core, he might just be ass. I don't know. But it's worth monitoring. I'm actually buying if you can, because I don't think it can get worse. Pop Douglas looks like a gadget player that has a role, like maybe I was in denial about. Polk has a legitimate chance to still be that dude when they actually get a quarterback to play quarterback for that team. So it looks rough when you put him up against all the other rookies who are like first on their team, over 22%. It looks real bad when you see that number 4. But this is one of those premium opportunities where you can just swoop in and possibly get him from someone who's impatient. We see it all the time. Just want him out. We see it all the time. Go and poke around. You don't know. Go and poke
Pumpkin
around.
spice latte rule applies
Yes.
to Jalen Polk.
Yes.
That's my official rule. Until you start craving a Starbucks pumpkin spice latte, you are not allowed to panic on a rookie. All that being said, half tier or full tier move ups for all of the core 4 guys there going at the 1-2 turn. Thomas looks fantastic immediately. I thought was the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville. I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 in for the season. I think he's going to score the most points of any of their wide receivers this year. McConkey, same thing. Really nice touchdown from him. Showed off some after the catch ability, which was one area I didn't actually think he had much of in his game on that touchdown. Coleman, only player on the team with more than 3 targets, has 5 first read targets. Only wide receiver running a full route share. And then Worthy, more of a limited role, but I mean, I feel like there was like no way to watch that first end around and not be like, oh, I see the vision. Like I see how this is going to work really, really well. So I think all those guys stock up.
Yeah, Nick Fury really said Alex Van Pelt has the concept of a plan for Polk. You'll see.
Concept of a plan.
That's Dynasty copium if I've ever seen it. I just think it can't get worse. And this is like a, we don't like to hear good things about blocking before receiving, but he did block well from Andre, and for coaches like Mayo, that probably matters in terms of getting him on the field. So he is, and Brian Thomas Jr. is a dog. We're going to talk about the Jaguars because I have to troll Trevor Lawrence week 1, obviously, but I was the highest on the show on Brian Thomas Jr. right up until the end when I switched to Lad, and I should have stood on business, and I never should have done it. But he does look like a dog. He is going to be their 1. He looks just dynamic all over the field. He looks really, really good. Do you have anything you want to touch? I just feel like I'm just going off my list here from stuff that I wrote down.
I'm good. We've had a long show. I
think there's
from the chat.
There's 2 players that I feel like earn mentioning. Quickly, very quickly. One, Jameson Williams. Genuinely impressed.
We should definitely talk about Jameson.
Genuinely impressed that he was my sleeper of the year. I think
big win
that's
early.
Gonna pan out. However, I just want to point out Laporta wasn't used, and they clearly were taking away Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like that was a criminally low Amon-Ra St. Brown target and result game. So it just let Jameson open quite often on crossers, which I actually thought is great because let's face it, Jared Goff doesn't throw the ball downfield. He's not going to throw the ball downfield. So that has to be Jameson's game. But if a team does now take away Amon-Ra and they do plan to take away Laporta, he is a legitimate, not just weapon. I'm putting him in my flex every week right now until I see a reason not to. I think that 12.5 point per game, I think we're on track. I'm willing to take a 6-point game for when I'm pretty sure he's still going to have one. My question to you, are you buying though? Like we've been sell.
What for what?
Then I bought in the off season I bought for 2 3s and Pop Douglas. I bought for Polk in a 3 off somebody. Like I've been buying at low increments, but now you've sold him. You sold him at his peak value, 6th, 7th round, let's say. Right now it's time to go back and buy while he's just a little bit cheaper, but I don't know. I don't know for what is the question. Are you fully ready to buy back in? Again, we sold them at max value when we doubted. Now's our opportunity to buy for less and get the production off somebody that thinks this might be a one-off. What do you want to buy him for?
I mean, I'd like to buy him for not a first. I don't know if that's going to be possible. But if there's any possibility that I could buy him for less than late 1 value, I mean, how about this? What do you think the percentage chance is you could go into a league and offer JSN for Jameson Williams? I think that could get
0.
done. Oh, I disagree. I think there's spots that could get done.
I don't. We saw.
I'm not asking what you would do. I think that's a viable.
I
don't trade.
I don't know if it is.
I'm gonna post it on Twitter.
Okay, let's post it on Twitter. A Dunze and Cup style and see what happens.
Post it from the Dynasty Points account here. And then
okay,
I
will. I'll do it after because I'm gonna get distracted.
Okay.
I think people are gonna see like, oh, high end production from Jameson finally, and then they're gonna see a dud from JSN. And I think most people, because we're in season now, they're gonna see production and want points, and I don't think they think it's gonna come from JSN. So you know what I mean? I think you're right on value. I think it's doable. I think that's a fake value trade that I think someone's actually just going to hold the points. I really do. You really have to find a special person that's still that much in on JSN after what you saw week 1. Fair. So I think you're right. This is exactly the type of trade that I would go in. If we really think this is for JSN, like I would go and offer this trade if I had any JSN. I think I would. But I know that there are people that want to go and hang an L on us all over the place, comments, Discord, whatever. It was never about, Jameson Williams. It was always about his cost and the likely outcome. This was the time to go buy back in. It's the cheapest he was, the cheapest he was going to be. I mentioned it multiple times here on this podcast that we should be looking into it. I've drafted him multiple times when he was late. He's like my wide receiver 10 on a lot of teams because he was going. So that was the time to buy back in. If you're a portfolio player, sell at the highest, buy at the lowest, reap the rewards. Maybe you want to trade him away in a package for a better player in 2 weeks. Who knows? But I think he's worth noting. We talked about Deshaun Watson, but let's talk about Bryce Young. It's over. Negative 16.9% completion percentage over expectation. And he had how long to prep for this game against the Saints that I don't even think are a great defense? It's over. The profile was no rushing, is timing inaccurate. It doesn't matter. It's over. Poor Deontay Johnson. Did you see his? It like the worst. What was it? His expected fantasy points was like 16. He had 6, like it's a negative 10. The only one worse was Cortland Sutton. It's sapped 2 players now. Deontay Johnson's dead again. It's super unfortunate, but now we're back to wishing Deontay Johnson had a capable quarterback. It's over again, and it sucks. It sucks ass.
He's never gonna have a quarterback. He's cursed for life.
He's done. I'm jettisoning him.
Those were the two of the biggest movers down my dynasty ranks were Bryce Young and Will Levis. I mean, those are 2 guys where we needed to see immediate returns of improvement in year 2. I was pretty optimistic about it with Levis. I wasn't very optimistic about it with Bryce, but both looked quite horrific.
Cooked. 100%.
The Will Levis surrender Cobra is going to be an all-time meme.
Yeah, that one.
That's going to be on the internet for years.
Is that right up there with like the interception like jump as I think it was Dalton is like walking
Andy
away
Dalton
and you
like
see
he's looking sad.
Yeah, I think those 2 are like all time. But like, yeah, the Levis thing bad. I was worried about the head coach who hadn't called plays since 2008. I think we have legitimate reason to be concerned. Also worth shouting out Calvin Ridley, once again the king of unrealized air yards, just continuing the trend that is Calvin Ridley. And I'm not gonna bang on Trevor Lawrence, but just know, because all quarterbacks were bad. But I'm watching. I got my eyes locked on how good he is all year. All right, last break at an hour and a half. We're going to quickly run through the player picks. I have the other 2 guys, so this is actually going to be a pretty quick player picks. And then we're going to get out of here right at 140, which I think is actually a pretty damn good time for everything. We covered a lot of stuff today. Theory, trades, buy, sell. Yeah, D-Hop, put him 6 feet in the ground. It's over. He's done. He's done in that offense. Put him 6 feet in the ground. It's over. It's over. Over. All right, quick break. We'll be back. Okay, let's talk about player picks. We got shellacked last week, folks. It was not good. Jacob Sanderson absolutely took us to the shed.
I'm gonna
honestly,
do my
truly,
Trump dance here for the debate.
Oh my God, truly remarkable. 93.36 points. We have Baker at 29.66, Joe Mixon 26.8. Just disgusting. Jaden Reed, the ultimate leave him wide open on crossers in zone, 33.1. Your Hunter Henry didn't matter. You scored a total of 93.36. Disgusting.
I picked Foster Moreau.
Yeah, imagine if you did. We had Ryan had Geno.
Did I hit the QB1, RB1, and wide receiver one, or was someone else outscore those guys?
Well, Baker definitely wasn't the QB1 because Anthony Richardson or because Josh Allen
Baker
exists.
Outscored. Oh, Josh Allen. Okay.
But you were close. I don't think anyone's ever hit all three. I think that might have been the closest that ever happened. Ryan had Geno, Mostert. Higgins took a fat 0. He's new to the game. He doesn't know never to pick a questionable player. And Noah Fant, he totaled 24.84. Lucas had Justin Herbert, 10.36. Aaron Jones, 18.9. Christian Kirk had 4. Luke Musgrave, a big fat 0 for 33.26. And I came in second. Sam Darnold, James Conner, Tank Dell, Taysom Hill for 47.42. What we do is every single week, we each pick a player, quarterback outside of the top 15, running back outside of the top 15, wide receiver outside of the top 30, tight end outside of the top 12. We take those PPR points, 4-point passing touchdown points. We total them up every week. And at the end of the week or end of the year, the winner gets to not only celebrate, but gets to choose the drinks of choice for the live draft show every year. Last year, Jacob won it. It was picklebacks. It was disgusting. I'm still not over it. I'm going to read off the other two guys because they're not here to defend themselves. We're going to start with last place, Ryan, who's going upside. Justin Fields, J.K. Dobbins, Lad McConkey, Tyler Conklin. Noticing a pattern, attacking the Panthers. I think you really thought about it and figured this game out after being deep into the Fantasy Points data suite. Lucas in third, Aaron Rodgers, Brian Robinson Jr., because, man, he looked good. I think Austin Eckler's best play was him blocking for Brian Robinson. Like, it is his role. Being used as a wide receiver, oh, my God. Love to see it. Khalil Shakir and Taysom Hill. I told you every week someone's going to have Taysom Hill in these lineups. So, Jacob, who do you have? Of course, have Herbert. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, I got on the same program as Ryan here. I took Justin Herbert because I too want to get in on picking against the Carolina Panthers. They suck ass. So I think if Derek Carr can do it, why not Justin Herbert? They're gonna, Greg Roman's gonna do the Greg Roman stuff. They're gonna run the ball a lot, but I think that the Chargers can put up 4 or 5 touchdowns in this game. Hopefully Herbert throws 2 or 3 of them. Devin Singletary going up against the Washington Commanders. They were the number 1 running back matchup last year. They were also the number 1 quarterback matchup last year, probably the number 1 receiver matchup last year. They just are really bad at defending. And so Devin Singletary hopefully is no exception from that. Tank Dell for Houston. There was concerns about the route rate with him. They didn't manifest. He ran 87% of the routes in this game. I think he has a bounce back week in the box score. And then Zach Ertz going for the Washington Commanders was the clear-cut, far and away tight end 1 because that's what Cliff Kingsbury does. Why not Zach Ertz to fall his fat ass into the end zone against New York Giants?
Yeah, I agree. Those are good picks, and I hate that they're good picks. But I'm going all upside, baby. I'm coming now for the first place. Daniel Jones versus Washington is either going to sink or swim. Talked about it earlier. This is the best matchup of his career is Daniel Jones against Washington. So I really need him to come through here. We're going with Ramondre Stevenson outside of the top 15 after he just put up an RB1 week. And now he gets Seattle. He's going to grind it out for another 25 carries, 100 yards, and a couple catches. Give me Mondre, wide receiver. Guess what? We get Tampa Bay, baby. We're getting Tampa Bay. And I think with Winfield injured, you got another cornerback whose name I don't remember because I'm not a psycho that plays IDP and remembers 4th on the depth chart. Cornerbacks injured. The linebackers looking a little slow. I think Jameson Williams can pop off again. This could be a 30 burger. We just talked about him. He only needs 2 touches to get there. I'm going Jameson Williams. And as we mentioned, I think the biggest benefactor from the injury to Nakua is Colby Parkinson. And the rule in fantasy football for like 15 years, it feels like, is always play the tight end versus the Arizona Cardinals. He gets the Cardinals. So give me
Nice.
Parkinson for a big game. I only need a very hate crime Higbee-esque game, which is 5 receptions, 40 yards, 2 scores. Let's get it. Let's also tip a cap for 21 target Cooper Kupp. He might be back. Go sell for an absolute bag, because my Lord, we talked about a lot here on this program, and I hope that you learned a lot from it. Jacob, like you said, you just released a new part of Thinking About Thinking, which everyone should be going and reading as soon as they can, because look, it's football season. There is no sleep. There's data, there's research, there's reading, there's articles. I mean, Herms, shout out Herms, CH Herms, or at Herms on Twitter, just dropped his How to Properly React to Week 1 article. With his first article, he's writing Weekly Dynasty. I told you, I'm going to say it into this microphone every week. I promised more content. Andy Buckler at Dynasty Buck on Sleeper. Andy Buckler on Twitter doing Discord threads. Dynasty Points intern Alex Becerra giving you Twitter threads and Discord threads about more Dynasty information. We've got this show popping off. Theo Greminger. We have so much Dynasty content. Jacob has a bunch of Dynasty 101s coming your way here shortly.
Just kind of work through a never-ending stream of technical difficulties. I've recorded the same video now 3 separate times. None of them have been successful. We've had issues with email. We've had issues with cameras. We've had issues with microphones. Eventually, we're going to get this sorted out, and it's going to get posted. I promise you.
My Fantasy Points email just isn't working, and I just thought I was fired, and they didn't want to tell me. Like, I thought they locked me out like I'm Jamal Adams, and I just couldn't get access because I couldn't get any emails. But it is on the way. We promise. It's gonna be there. So I love where we're at right now with this show. We had one of our biggest weeks last week for downloads for podcasts. So thank you for everyone. We're reaching new levels. We've got new writers, new content creators. Lucas is crushing it. Truly awesome, every single one of you. But as I was throwing to before I got sidetracked again, because I do that, Jacob, Thinking About Thinking.
Yeah. I mean, the major in-season column, if you were with me last year or even before I started the Substack, is the Hitchhiker's Guide to Running Back. Early season, especially, I split into 2 parts. So I do what's called the Sunday Drive, which is where we go through, in most normal weeks, we go through any of the injuries and the potential fallout, and then we go through any of the backfield utilization changes that I thought were significant, and the priority on the waiver wire at the running back position. This week, of course, can't really talk about utilization changes because we got a brand new week. So that meant I talked about every single backfield and every single game, what we saw to do that level set. That'll get pared down as we go. Also had a lot of general thoughts on how I think is a good way to evaluate week 1 performances that you maybe didn't expect to see. And then I'll be back at some point later in the week, certainly before Sunday, with the second portion of the Hitchhiker's Guide, which is going to be the streamer stock watch. That's what I'm going to go through and actually rank the potential streamer candidates that you might need to start if you're in a pinch at running back, based on the matchup, based on the utilization, and I'm going to add some film breakdowns into that. So stay tuned for that, probably Friday or Saturday. And fun announcement is that I will be seeing Tom Tipple this weekend.
That's right.
Because our mutual beloved friend, the commissioner of the first Dynasty League that I played in with Tom, the captain of the slow pitch team where I first met Tom, he's getting married this weekend.
That's right.
And who's officiating the wedding? Me. I'm officiating the wedding.
Oh, yeah. Let's go, baby.
So I'll be seeing Tom this weekend. We're going to get really, really drunk this Saturday. We're going to have an absolute blast with one of our best friends. So,
and they might ask if I'm your dad again.
They might ask. The last time we were at Tom's wedding social, or Austin's wedding social, the bartender did ask if Tom was my father. Despite us looking nothing alike, having about an 8 to 9 inch height difference, and him having a full beard and me having like the most pathetic wisps of facial hair.
It wasn't the blonde hair, like blue eyes that gave it away either. Like, I don't know. Made my night, made me feel real good about my gray hair. So shout out Austin. We love you. We're going to see it. Maybe that's a solution to your recording. You just come to my house. We'll record here. We'll just knock them out of the way. Either way.
Got like 6 done.
Before we get out of here, this has been a phenomenal show. Follow everyone. Link in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't. All that out of the way. Great show. I love everybody. I do feel like there's something I got to admit. I talk about all the time about checking in on your loved ones just because you're not sure if they need it. We lost a fucking juggernaut today that is responsible for so much of my childhood. James Earl Jones passed away today. From Field of Dreams, Star Wars to Lion King. He was probably one of the most influential people in my life. James Earl Jones celebrated for his deep voice that connected with everybody, his ability to bring gravitas in a wide range of roles. His work will continue to live on. I think Star Wars fandom will help bring that by. I'll never forget, Field of Dreams, they will come, Ray. Like he was such an amazing human being, and it really sucks that we lost another one. So I'll be watching Star Wars all week. I'll definitely be watching Field of Dreams. So shout out James Earl Jones. Time comes for everybody, but man, it still sucks every single time. Damn. Hey, but that doesn't mean, well, guess what? We're going to be back next week. We're going to be right back here, back at it. Go watch Star Wars. Go watch Field of Dreams. Go watch The Lion King and every other piece of James Earl Jones you can. Let's celebrate a great man. For Jacob, for myself, remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose, and your best days are always spent tilting. Good night, everybody.
What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.